We're going to learn some interesting facts to the backstory of Dinah today, the daughter of Jacob, the one who was assaulted, sexually assaulted, what have you, and Shechem, and the subsequent destruction of Shechem by the sons of Jacob. And we're going to focus in on Dinah specifically because her story has a lot of fascinating aspects to it as we look at it from the standpoint of ancient Jewish commentary, ancient Jewish texts that are found in the Midrash and various other places subsequent to the story in the Bible. It adds a lot more flavor. It adds a lot more background, teaches us some things, and helps us to understand some issues. And there's a portend because of the result of this issue leads to a interesting encounter between that involves Joseph. So we'll be looking at that as well. So good morning. Glad you're here. Welcome to the Aliyah. I pray that you have been having a good week, and I pray that you have enjoyed the Aliyot so far. I pray that you are putting up your Hanukkah decorations and starting to celebrate this wonderful holiday. I'm looking forward to Hanukkah. It's always special to light the menorah in the evenings. Just a very unique and special time. So looking forward to being involved in that with you coming up. Baruch HaShem. So one thing I want to point out here as you're looking at this story, and it's just, again, it's my constant, my frequent, I should say, encouragement to all of us that life is just life. And we're all human beings. We all get down in the dumps. Rebbetzin was sometimes fond of saying, we tend to get down in the mully grubs. We think that our life is difficult at times, and we don't understand why we walk through things. And then we read stories in the Bible and we realize, life was not a cakewalk for our biblical heroes. And if you look at the life of Jacob has lots of peaks and valleys, as did Abraham. I mean, Abraham is just amazing character. He's got such a fiery faith. He's got such a heart for people. He loves people so much. And yet, he has to suffer through a couple of famines. His wife gets abducted twice. He's just trying to buy a burial plot for her finally, and he gets, he has to give up 400 shekels. I mean, it's just those are just a few things, not to mention the fact that life is going good, and now he has to offer up her son. Life is going good, and now his wife has a conflict with Hagar. He has to get rid of Hagar, then he has to get rid of Ishmael, and it's up and down, and we see this with Jacob. Jacob has peaks and valleys. He goes off to find a wife. After he reluctantly deceives his father, he deceives his father at his mother's bequest. He's on his way to find a wife. Esau's son catches up with him and is going to kill him. And he says, "Don't kill me, just take my stuff. I'll be as good as dead." So he does. So he shows up to find a wife broke. By the way, let me just mention that a little bit. I don't know. I don't recall if this was covered when I was out by the other teachers, but maybe it was, and I just didn't catch it. So forgive me if I'm repeating something. But if you think about it, when Jacob shows up to get a wife, and of course he sees Rachel at the well, and we went through all of that. He should have married Leah, but we went through all that. But why does he have to work for Laban for 7 years? I mean, Isaac is not Poe. Isaac is not Poe. Okay. Isaac and Rebecca would not have sent their son off to find a wife, which, when you go to find a wife, you need some cash, need some change, which is what Eliezer did. Eliezer set off to find Rebecca with 9 camels. I mean, he had some change, he had some jewelry, he had credit cards. He probably one of the camels was pulling a Cadillac. I mean, he had all kind of stuff to go find a wife. And so Jacob shows up and all he's got is his cloak and a staff. And that, so it makes you know, and I know people don't normally think about that because we're kind of divorced, so to speak, no pun intended, from that culture. We don't get that. Although can't really find a wife today when I have some cash, but there's that. But he shows up and he's got to work. Why does he have to work? Because he has no bride dowry. So anyway, I didn't mean to get off on that, but I wanted to illuminate that for you in case you'd never heard that before. That's why he wept when he saw Rachel. He wasn't weeping out of a romantic weeping. It wasn't like that. So he goes through all that up and down. He wrestles with Memtet. He wrestles with Yeshua. It's an amazing blessing, come on. He's wrestling with this angelic, this divine being. He has this encounter with Esau. All that seems to go pretty well. Esau and he have a moment. And then he ends up at Shechem. He's thinking to himself, you know what? I'm finally back in the Holy Land. Things are going pretty good. I've got my family around me. I survived. Angels. I've got angels walking around doing what I want them to do. And then Dinah happens. And it is a lesson to all of us. Yes, Habib, it was a pink Cadillac, in fact. It's the very first one. It was the Mary Rebecca Cadillac. But anyway, this is a lesson to all of us that this is just life. I wish it wasn't so. I wish it wasn't true that we have these peaks and valleys, but we do. And so I intend this to be an encouragement to all of us that you're not alone. When you're going through your peaks and your valleys, you're not unique. God is not picking on you. This is the life of those who walk through life. This is what it's like to be on the planet. And frankly, only the spiritually strong survive. Rabbi was reading an insight yesterday from Ramcall, I believe it was. And it was talking about how when the wicked stumble, because they're so encased in wickedness, they don't know what they're stumbling over. They're so blind, they don't know what's causing their demise. And therefore, they can't make teshuvah because they don't know what they're making teshuvah for. They don't even know they need to make teshuvah. But whereas when it comes to the righteous, when we stumble and make mistakes, we realize what caused the stumbling, and that's a good thing. It's a good thing. It's because the wonderful things he does. We are able at that point to recognize what caused the problem and deal with it, or to quote Zach and Rayford, fix it. It's very important. So our first insight, therefore, deals with this issue of the benefits of trials. As I say that, as those words leave my mouth, it seems it's kind of bittersweet. It's like, the benefit of trials. We don't really want trials, and yet that's the only way we grow. It's the only way we grow. I've mentioned this recently. It feels like I did anyway, but Hanukkah's coming up. And I have a Hanukkah album. No, I didn't sing on the Hanukkah album, although I've had many requests to create a singing Hanukkah album, but I just haven't yet. Probably never will. But in all seriousness, there's a Hanukkah album, and on that album that I have, there's a man talking. I presume he's of rabbinical nature, but I don't know. But he makes a very profound statement. He's talking about, Hanukkah is a holiday that takes place during the darkest time of the year, hence the power of the light and so on. But he said that, we all would like to live a life in which the sun is always shining. It's always bright skies and beautiful sunshine. That's where we think we want to live. But he said, if you look at nature, there's only one place in nature where the sun is always shining and there are never any storms. There's never any dark clouds. There's never any, that type of thing. And that place is the desert. The desert. And he said the thing is that nothing grows in the desert. And if you go to the place where life is most prolific and there's vegetation and foliage and abundance of everything, water and fruit and all this other kind of stuff, you have to go really to the rainforest where it rains and storms all the time. And so that's the paradox of life. We want there to be always sunshine and so forth. But yet that's not where growth happens. And if you think about, if you live a sedimentary life, if you sit around the couch and just eat bonbons, do they still make bonbons? Does anybody, when I say bonbons, do you know what I'm talking about? This is a serious question. And I really don't know because we haven't had television like regular TV in quite some time. I'm not trying to be super spiritual. We just don't. So I don't see commercials, but they used to have these bonbon commercials. I don't know if they still have those anymore, but anyway, it doesn't matter. But if you live that kind of lifestyle, yeah, that's relaxing. Yes, it is easygoing, but what happens to your physical body? It will begin to basically deteriorate. And so in order to keep your body, I'm talking about your physical body here, in order to keep your physical body healthy and vibrant and your muscles not to go into atrophy, you really need to go to the gym, or you need to get outside and walk or run or climb a mountain or something like that. In other words, you have to do things that are physically, challenging and exhausting, and they cause your muscles to burn, and it's not, cause you to sweat. There has to be resistance of some kind in order for you to grow. So we look at this insight. This comes from Rabbi Monk's commentary. He says, now Dinah went out. We're talking about this in a second, why she went out. But anyway, it says she went out. This is in chapter 34 of the book of Genesis, talking about Dinah. Now Dinah, the daughter of Leah, whom she had born to Jacob, went out to look over the daughters of the land. Keep in mind, this is Leah's daughter. So it says, the Psalm 75:5 says, I said to the joyous ones, cease your rejoicing. Our sages cite this verse from the Tehillim to introduce an account which follows. It says, joy, they tell us, does not last. And after mentioning the examples of Adam and Abraham and Isaac, they show how Jacob, who had just overcome the terrible trials of the past 20 years and had believed that he had at last was going to be able to settle down and find happiness, suddenly he faces a setback in his destiny. His household is subjected to a succession of calamities: the rape of his daughter, Rachel's death, Joseph's disappearance. His father Isaac had experienced a very similar fate. Nevertheless, if we consider the historical mission of Jacob's family, we can grasp the meaning of this new trial. This people, which is called on to be a nation of priests and standard bearers for God on earth, had to experience a moral outrage upon its own flesh and blood right from its inception. It had to undergo this ordeal so that the world could see in its swift and ruthless reaction the sacred character of the idea of purity. Talking about Israel, had to suffer this outrage so that it could harden the steel of the nation, national soul, for all time. So again, this goes back to this. These trials happen because it has to harden us. It has to shape us. It has to help us. Now, it mentioned in the scriptures, interestingly, because nothing in the scripture is without purpose. And so there's a reason why the Bible tells us that Dinah is the daughter of Leah, aside from just being a fact. There's a reason why this has to be pointed out, because frankly, why does it matter? Why doesn't it just say Dinah, daughter of Jacob? Who cares who her mother is? Why does it matter? Well, it makes a difference because the Torah is trying to help us understand why Dinah went out. And the reason she went out is because she's her mother's daughter. What do we mean by that? Well, let's get to the commentary and let you see it. Because remember, of all of Jacob's wives, he was only supposed to marry Leah, actually. In actual fact, now we know all things work together for good to those who love God and are called according to his purposes. Everything is from HaShem, ain't no novalo. So ultimately, he ends up married to 4 women who are all sisters. That's ultimately God's will because God controls everything. But if you look at just the straight facts of the matter, the only wife he was supposed to have was Leah. And Leah, if you look at Leah's character, Leah is by far the most spiritual of all 4. And she is the most humble, the most modest. She is a Sarah and Rebecca. Okay. And hence Dinah. Now, this is all going to play out when you listen to the story. Now, it goes on to say here in the commentary, why didn't it say the daughter of Jacob? But because she went out, she's called the daughter of Leah. For Leah also had the habit of going out. And it quotes a scripture verse here, and Leah went out to meet him. But we're going to learn why Leah went out. What was her issue? Okay. And how did Dinah learn this from her mom? And so it says from this, we get the proverb, like mother, like daughter, like father, like son. It's very common, right? It says, there's another opinion by Rabbi Eliezer who explains, like her father, Dinah used to stay in her tents and was reluctant to leave. So now we see that Dinah has the character trait that Jacob had, that she liked to just stay at the tents. And what it means by staying at the tents, it means she just liked to stay back. Not she was a homebody, but rather she liked to study Torah. She was close to, she liked to stay in the house of God, so to speak. She wasn't really into worldly things. So she didn't go out and she didn't go to the mall and she didn't go to the drive-in movie and all that kind of stuff. She just liked to stay back and listen to Torah. So it says, but Shechem aroused her curiosity when he sent dancers and musicians to the door of her tent. These drew her outside. In this appraisal, Dinah's character is more like that of her mother, who tradition praises her for her modesty and reserve, as is noted in the commentary of Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer, which we're going to read that in just a second. So now we know that she's like Leah and that she goes out. Shechem creates an atmosphere. He brings out some women, some young ladies to do like a dancing show. And he did this because he had, as we read some other stories, some other commentaries, like in the Legends of the Jews and so forth. Leah went out to look upon the women of Shechem, and Dinah went with her. Now, a lot of the commentaries suggest, by the way, just let me throw this out there, that one of the issues here is that Dinah is underage. There's various opinions as to her actual age, but most of them suggest that she was not yet at the marriageable age, which in those days, it's hard for us because in our modern time, here in America, most states either have, a lot of states have 17 years of age as the age of consent. Some have 18, but usually it's 17 or 18 in America. In other countries, it's a little younger. I think in Mexico, it's a little younger. I don't recall what exactly the age is. But back in antiquity, it was generally about, it was really for a girl, it was really hovered around 15. It could be even younger than that, which again is hard for us to fathom, and I totally understand that, but that's just the reality. But in this case, it's saying that Dinah may have been a little younger than that, which makes the whole situation even worse, because she's not really at a marriageable age. I just want to throw that out there. So she goes with her mother, and she sees these women dancing. And so Shechem, this is a scheme, because when he sees Dinah, he has an infatuation with her, a lust for her. Obviously, it's not healthy. And he wants to entice her to come out because he's trying to basically draw her out. And that's the whole reason why he does this women's dancing show. But I want to read from the Kehot Tumash because this gives us an insight as to the heart of Dinah and the heart of Leah. So it says, and this is remember that the Kehot reads a bit like the Amplified Bible. For those of you who are familiar with various English translations, the Amplified Bible is like an expanded version, kind of brings in some insights. This does the same thing. So it says, Dinah was the daughter of Leah, whom Leah had born to Jacob. Now, Dinah was Leah's daughter, not only in the biological sense, but also in the moral sense. She inherited her mother's willingness. Now, listen to this. She inherited her mother's willingness to venture out of the safety of her tent for holy and righteous purposes, confident in her ability to positively influence others. So in other words, what she's saying here is that she originally was going out like her mother because she felt like that she could influence the daughters, the women. Remember that the Midrash teaches us that Abraham would convert the men and Sarah would convert the women. So each patriarch and matriarch inherited that mission from Abraham and Sarah. Abraham, and I want to really hammer this home as I normally do, and that is that Abraham and Sarah's mission was to win the world to the covenant. They were trying to get men circumcised and so converts, bringing in converts. And so that's what Leah did. Leah, and this is one of the beautiful things about Leah, she embraced this mission. And of all the wives of Jacob, what's interesting is this is the only wife of Jacob that talks about that she actually went out to seek souls. Why? Because Leah understood. She wanted to be a matriarch. She wanted to embrace the call of Sarah. She wanted to embrace the call of Rebecca. We don't know about the other women, but we know Leah's heart. And so Dinah says, this is my mama is doing this, and I'm going to do it. I'm going to go out and I'm going to win some souls. And in fact, the commentary says, because Dinah went out, the residents of Shechem committed a crime for which they suffered the death penalty. And it said, and unfortunately, Dinah herself suffered a cruel immorality. But beneath the surface, it says, the matter was somewhat more complex. First of all, as we see, it was not Dinah's fault that she was abducted. Her abduction was a punishment for Jacob not having given her to Esau in marriage. So there's a whole commentary, a whole discussion about the fact that Dinah should have been given to Esau as a wife. And part of the reason behind that thinking is that this was Jacob's opportunity to influence his brother, to give his brother his daughter so that Esau could finally have a godly wife. Remember, none of Esau's wives, they're either Egyptian or they're Canaanite. And Jacob, it talks about in some of the commentaries that Jacob withheld that kindness from Esau, and this was the punishment for that. It kind of reminds me, by the way, of today in Judaism. There is no effort to reach the nations, which is, of course, the exact opposite, as I just said, is what all the matriarchs and patriarchs did. That, ladies and gentlemen, is withholding a kindness from Esau. If we don't tell Esau how he can get saved, then we're withholding the kindness from him. So it's not okay. It's not okay to just tell them, oh yeah, you just go away and do whatever you want. And this Judaism, this Torah, this life of serving the king who rules over kings, blessed be he, is my precious. You have to go do something else. That's exactly what Jacob was doing here. So it says here, secondly, her efforts did in fact bear fruit. She went out to try to win souls, and one could suggest that, well, it was a failed mission, but in fact, the Kehot and the commentary here brings out something novel and says, actually, it wasn't completely a failure. Because at the end of the day, this resulted in the entire people of Shechem becoming circumcised. It says circumcision is a part of the process by which a non-Jew converts to Judaism. If you're not circumcised, you're not a Jew. If you get circumcised, you become a Jew, essentially. Okay? That's important for you to understand. It says, and this fact was well known to the inhabitants of Shechem. By agreeing to be circumcised, the males of Shechem were agreeing to be refined to a certain degree. This collective assent to become at least partially Jewish refined their whole society as well, including the girls. And in fact, it's interesting to note that this place would become the place of the dwelling of the tabernacle for more than 400 years, and it would become the burial place of Joseph. So there is a redemptive thing going on here. Okay, and then we're also going to learn another reason why I think Joseph ended up being buried here, and it has to do with this Dinah story. But anyway, it goes on to say here that God created women with an enhanced ability, it says here, to connect empathetically with others. Boy, isn't that's true, right? Men are a little bit more, harsh. Women tend to be a little bit more sweeter. That is their nature. Okay. So it says Dinah's behavior teaches us that women who are blessed with unique talents that enables them to influence others should utilize those talents, not just to build their homes and families. They should also use them to draw the hearts. Now, to be full disclosure, I'm reading here the commentary from the Keho Tumash, and it makes a sentence here that doesn't make sense. Okay. It says, they should also use these talents to draw the hearts of their fellow Jewish women to the Torah and its ways of goodness and kindness. Now, this is written this way because this publication is from a particular Jewish sect that believes that we should only be reaching Jewish people. But that's not what the matriarch said. Dinah did not go out to reach Jewish women. Neither did Leah. They went out to reach the people of the land, just like Abraham and Sarah did. So this should not read to reach their fellow Jewish women, but rather to reach their fellow women, to bring them to the Torah and to its kindness and good deeds. This is what, Dinah was trying to do. So interestingly, she goes out to do this. She gets abducted by Shechem. He violates her, and he wants to marry her. He wants to marry her. He wants to have her as a wife or whatever. And he was brazen. It was wrong what he did. Now, after the fact, he wants to marry her. You could look at that and say, well, I guess he's trying to do right by her. But the brothers aren't having it. The brothers aren't having it. They think this is wrong. And so they commit a ruse. And they tell the people of Shechem, look, all right, you can keep her as your wife, but you're going to have to get circumcised. And they tell them, because for us, uncircumcision is a blemish, and that circumcision is the will of God, and that if someone is not circumcised, it is a disgrace. It is not a virtue. For a Jewish woman to be married to an uncircumcised man is something to be considered shameful. And so they say, look, you cannot, we can't let her be with you unless you're circumcised. So if you agree to be circumcised, then, we'll let her be your wife. And so, of course, Shechem does this, but we're going to find out in another commentary that he doesn't get circumcised for really the right reasons. Now, this also teaches something important to know about circumcision, and that is that circumcision biblically, in the Jewish mind, it's never been the idea that you could be uncircumcised and be in the covenant is simply and frankly, to put it succinctly, not biblical at all. It is the antithesis, actually, of the concept. As is pointed out in the prophet Ezekiel, it makes it crystal clear. It says it in black and white that the people that will be in the covenant and therefore allowed to participate in atonement and so forth will be circumcised both in the flesh and in their heart. David curses Goliath and says, this is an uncircumcised Philistine, meaning that he is not in covenant. King David, somebody special came from King David. Who was that? Oh, it was the Messiah. That's who it was. King David identifies not being in the covenant is synonymous with being uncircumcised. And it's very important for us to understand this, because in the last 2,000 or 1,500 years or 1,600 years, when the religion of Rome was created, people were led to believe that circumcision just didn't matter, that you could be in the covenant without being circumcised. You can just understand, you're going to dismiss a fundamental sign of the covenant given to us by God, and then we're just going to get rid of it. Why? It doesn't matter anymore. No rhyme or reason to it. And I just wanted to point this out. As we read this commentary, the sons of Jacob are like, you can't marry our daughter if you're not circumcised. And of course, they all get circumcised. They all suffer the 3-day recovery of the event. And then while they're recovering, the sons of Jacob go in and kill each and every one of them. Seems rather brutal to us, right? But we learn from the legend of the Jews, there is another part of the story. And that is that, and we learned this not just from the legend of the Jews, but from other commentaries, is that when Shechem gets the people together and says, hey, this is what we're going to do, he lets them know that, look, we're doing this just so that we can get Dinah, so I can have Dinah, okay? But after we get circumcised and after we recover, we're gonna kill Jacob and his sons. This is what it says. I'm kind of paraphrasing. This is from Legends of the Jews chapter. What chapter is this? I'm not sure what chapter it is. Actually, it's page 309 if you have it. And this is part of the article, the outrage at Shechem. So this is essentially what's said. Look, we're going to do this. We're just going to play along. As soon as we recover from this, we're going to kill Jacob and his sons and get rid of them. Well, Dinah at this time is being essentially held captive, more or less, in Shechem's house. But Jacob has sent her 2 handmaids from his house to just kind of, be with her. Well, when Dinah overhears this plot, she sends one of the handmaids back to her brothers to tell them, look, they're going to get circumcised, but as soon as they recover, their plan is to come kill you guys. So this gives a little bit better context as to why. Of course, this enrages the brothers and only serves to confirm what they were feeling the whole time. And so this is why they turn around and become the slayers of men that they are. So it gives us a little bit more context. Now, this is a terrible situation. Okay. Dinah ends up being violated and so forth. But we're going to read a couple of comments here. And let me start with Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer. So it says, this calamity fell upon, this is Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer, chapter 38. It says that Shechem brought the dancing girls who were playing on the pipes in the streets, and Dinah went forth to see those girls who were making merry, and he seized her and slept with her, and she conceived and bore a daughter named Asenath. Okay. Now the sons of Israel said that she should be killed. They were upset with Dinah. They felt like she did wrong by going out, maybe, or whatever. They just had, their mindset. And the reason they said this, it says in Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer, is because they said that now people will say in the land that there was an immoral daughter in the tents of Jacob. So they wanted to kill Dinah not kill Dinah, but rather kill Asenath, kill the offspring of this union, because they felt like it would just be a disgrace to the people of Israel. So what did Jacob do? He wrote the holy name upon a golden plate and suspended it about her neck. Now he created a necklace with the divine name on it. And he sent her away, and she wept. She went her way. Everything is revealed before HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And he sent Michael, the archangel, who took her and brought her down to Egypt, to the house of Potiphar, because Asenath was destined to become the wife of Joseph. Now, we read this story and we're like, wait, what? So Dinah's daughter ends up becoming the wife of Jacob. Yes, let's read the story and how this played out in the Legends of the Jews. So it says, Dinah bore Asenath from Shechem. Okay. When this daughter was born to Dinah, her brethren, the sons of Jacob, wanted to kill her, that the finger of men might not point at the fruit of this sin in their father's house. But Jacob took a piece of metal and inscribed upon it the holy name and hung it about her neck. And he put her under a thorn bush and abandoned her there. So this is talking about this little baby Asenath. He just put her under a thorn bush and just left her to, whatever God would do. An angel carried the babe down to Egypt, where Potiphar adopted her as his child, for his wife was barren. This is his wife, the same woman who would later try to and falsely accuse Joseph. It said that years thereafter, when Joseph traveled through the land as a viceroy, so remember, he was in his chariot, he was going through the streets of Egypt, and the young maidens were throwing things at him. They were throwing flowers and such. Okay, it says here, the maidens threw gifts at him to make him turn his eyes to their direction and give them the opportunity of gazing upon his beauty. And the suggestion here is that some of these young maidens, of course, wanted to be the wife of this new viceroy. I mean, my goodness, he's pretty much the most powerful man in Egypt, aside from Pharaoh. Well, Asenath was there that day, and she was among these maidens. And it says here that instead of her throwing gifts or throwing flowers into the chariot, she took the necklace off of her neck that had the divine name on it, and she threw it into the chariot. And it says that Joseph saw the necklace and picked it up and saw that it had the divine name written upon it. And when he saw the amulet, it says this, Joseph became acquainted with her lineage. He understood that this is a daughter of Jacob. And he married her, seeing that she was not, in fact, an Egyptian, but one connected to the house of Jacob through her mother, Leah. So as we see this story, it's Asenath, who is the daughter of this terrible situation, who is in effect the niece of Joseph. She, through the circumstances, ends up she's an outcast from her family. She goes all the way down. She's living in Egypt as an adopted daughter of this Potiphar, who is a idolatrous priest. I want you to see the spiritual picture here. She has the blood of Jacob running through her veins, but she's being raised in idolatry. There's nobody around her that is even remotely godly. Perhaps she has a vague understanding of her heritage. All she's got is an amulet. All she's got connected her to HaShem is his name. But she ends up becoming the wife of the Savior of the world. As the Midrash Rabbah refers to Joseph, the hope of the world. He is the messianic figure. He is the one from whom we get Messiah, son of Joseph. And so the outcast Asenath, who grew up in idolatry, ends up being the wife of the hope of the world. Remember, her birthplace is Shechem. And Joseph ends up being buried at Shechem. But what happens to Dinah? Dinah eventually becomes the wife of Job. According to some traditions, she becomes the wife of Job, the man who is credited with overcoming. He is our superhero who overcomes hardship in order to just stick it out with God. and Dinah is his wife. The woman who knew what it was like to go through hardship and disgrace became the wife of the man who would suffer the greatest hardship. End of our Aliyah today. Toda Rabbi for being here, and I hope that this story has been inspiring to you. I hope it's been giving you a better understanding of who Dinah was and the legacy that she has left for all of us. Thank you for being here. Please like this video, share with your friends, subscribe to our channel, and help me get the word out. It is time for Lapid Judaism to rise and to grow. Please be a part of that effort. Thank you for being here. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow with God's help.